So,
We
guys,
are
welcome
live.
to, yeah, we are, hey. And this has been something you and I have been wanting to do for so long, something a little bit unscripted, something a little bit raw, showing up as two business owners and just having a chat a little bit around kind of mindset. And so you and I have created the space where we're going to really offer, I would say, a safe place for business owners like us to have conversations that are a little bit difficult to have and that are very contextualized around the stresses and the strains that we face as business owners in South Africa and in Africa. So welcome everyone. Anissa, I'm going to jump straight into it. It's my session today. I felt like we could use these as like venting sessions. So I wanted to chat a little bit around my relationship with money. And I wanted to use it as a bit of a venting session. We have an hour together. And the conversation you and I had when we were in Cape Town together was how more than often as business owners, as SMMEs, we're not the greatest with managing money. But that's purely because of the circumstances around being a business owner. But we are at the end of the month. This is usually a huge stressful time for us as business owners. And for me, I sometimes get really frustrated where I want to run with my business. I want to take it to the next level. And yet I find myself towards the end of the month scrambling to bring in the money to help with cash flow. And that's been big frustration points at this stage. And that's something that I wanted us to spend a bit of time on chatting. Have you ever experienced it? I mean, do you have those ebbs and flows? And in your history with business owners, do you see it really often? And what advice do you give them? Like when someone is ready to throw in the towel and frustrated and just gatvol, what are your parting words with them?
Do you know, I'm having some bad connectivity here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, of course we can hear
you. Brad, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you quite well.
Okay. So I got you going away each time, so I don't know if it's my side or your side.
It could be the best of
Brad,
both.
are you there?
Yeah, I am, yeah.
Okay. So I heard the gist of what you were saying. You were asking if I'm also having those, wanting to run with the business, I heard you say, and then yet we want to bring in the money, and yet it's not delivering on that. Of course, yes, I'm no different to any other business owner, and I need to get a bit smarter with my forecasting, I suppose, and making provision for those quiet, low season months, because that's why we, I suppose, in that situation of wanting to just make things work and run with it and bring in new business all the time, but yet there is the daily struggle with even just your existing clients that don't necessarily pay you on time. I don't know if you experience that on your side. Are you there? I think it's my
Yeah,
side.
I think it's yeah, I am, yeah. I think for me it's a lot around it's the frustration with money comes in where it is an expectation for you to deliver what you need to do as a professional, as an SMME, but that cannot be compromised, or it can never dip or never, kind of waver. But what it needs to do is it needs to do that in a time when there's very, very little kind of cash in the bank. And I was actually chatting to another business owner out there, and they were saying that, they're so used to that hustle mindset. They're so used to consistently having to perform what they need to do as business owners, with very little money in the bank. And I'm just thinking to myself, this must really affect our mindsets. This must put us in a space where we, I remember meeting business owners when I was younger. We third generation business owners. And they used to be so aggressive and rude and so protective over their money. And I always used to think, geez, I never want to be like this when I'm a business owner. I always want to treat people with respect and kindness. But now I'm slowly but understanding it, because it's this constant barrage of stress that you've got to deal with when it comes to money management, bringing in money, getting your clients to pay you, etc., etc. And it just sometimes reaches a point where you just look at it and go, what is the big point? Why am I actually doing this?
No, I can resonate with that. And the mindset, depending on how much you have awareness of those negative spiral thoughts that does come in, or do you give gratitude? Like it's either one of the two. Like, do I stay in the space of gratitude or for being able to still have a business? Because if you look at the stats, I mean, Brad, the stats speaks for itself. There's so many businesses that close down, and it's got to do with either access to funding or they're not getting enough payments from clients on time. I just had a client today that said that she has outgrown government and doing business with government, because as much as you get the contracts, they take forever to pay. And so now she's sitting with the dilemma of having concluded projects, but yet still waiting on money. And then there's auditing and all of those things to deal with. But the point is that this does happen, but how do we hone our mindset so that we don't go into the struggle and the suffering and the wanting to give up? Because there are times where I questioned myself, do I need to just find a job as a side hustle, not a job as I want to go into the work world again, but what do I do to supplement my income in the quiet times? What do I do in order to cover those difficult periods when clients do take not only a week, but a month or 2 or 3 months to pay you? So where do you find yourself in? And it's very easy to go into that almost that suffering victim consciousness and say, okay, well, I actually don't think that I can do this anymore, And then you have people in your corner or circle that's also saying to you, maybe it's time to go and explore something else. And yet, in your heart of hearts that this is the thing you're meant to be doing. But how do you then discern between being okay with those quiet periods, Brad? I mean, from your side, I don't know how you've overcome it when there are those lean periods or delays in payment periods.
Yeah, so what we've done is, we've built a kind of like a financial cushion. So I think one of the big things for me has been, and my advice generally to a lot of business owners, is not to extend yourself in your personal capacity as well as your business in your business capacity. So where possible, keep your expenses, keep your financial obligations as low as possible, prioritize everything. So for example, you've been in business for 3-4 years, you're starting to do really well, you want to purchase yourself a new car, you go out and you say, look, I'm approved for 500,000 Rand or 600,000 Rand. The key thing is not to buy a car for that amount, to actually look at a car for half that amount. Because what that does is that then gives you that little bit of a cushion. So although you can afford it, it's better for you to live light and lean. And sometimes it comes across that you're a little bit of a miser and you like to hold on to money. But that has really saved me and it saved the business. Because when we do have lean times, I have a cushion that I can fall back on personally. and the business has a little bit of a cushion in its flexibility, because not everything allocated in the business's income has to go to an expense. There is a little bit of a buffer. I always go back and look at people that have lost their businesses, and I will try and do little case studies on it, because it can happen to any of us. And it doesn't necessarily mean you're a bad business person. It might be a situational thing. It might be just wrong timing. It could be anything. But the key for me has always been is when we try to grow and extend ourselves too quickly, like I said to you in the beginning, I feel like I want to run with a business, and then I get so frustrated when I have to take like 3 steps back. But then I have a reminder that that's business. And our relationship with finance should be in a way where we respect it to such a point that whatever we bring into our space from a cost perspective, we understand that this is, although on the shelf it's costing us 1,000 Rand, this is actually costing us 3 grand because of the buffer that we need to put into place, because of that financial kind of longevity that we need to put into our business. And that is what I've learned, and that's what has helped my business grow. I would love to have flashy offices. I mean, it would be really nice, but for me, that's a waste of money, and it eats away at our buffer. I can still deliver where we are. I mean, I'm working remotely at the moment. We don't ever cut back on earnings and things like that. But where there's unnecessary costs, we just don't do it. It becomes an ego purchase, and we just don't do it. So that's helped me a lot. It just frustrates me so much. I get so frustrated, and I can feel with the SMEs that I work with, their frustration when they were like, I've got these so many orders out there, but my vehicle's broken down, and I just don't have 1,000 Rand to fix the vehicle.
Yeah.
So I could go and film orders to bring in 20 grand. I'm just like, geez, how do we get there? How do we get around there?
Yeah. Brad, I just want to acknowledge there's some people that have joined on Instagram. So there's a question, if you'd like to address it. But firstly, welcome Zakia and Mumtaz and Ibrahim. Mumtaz says, no one talks about the stress business owners go through. Thank you for talking about this. It's a pleasure, Mumtaz. And she also asked the question, if I could ask a question, how does one go home without the stress of work? Because it follows you home as well. So there is no balance, right? So we always talk about work-life balance, but is it really balance, or is it integration? Because you've just spoken about not having these offices. I work remotely from home myself, and I'm not going to lie, I tear my hair out sometimes, because it's like I've got to be the mom that is helping my kids do online schooling, which I just said to Brad before this, and I've got to run the business. So I don't separate between being the entrepreneur, business owner, and work. So how do we respond to that in terms of not, whether you're in the home and not letting it ripple into your family life, or whether you're coming from a location now going home and not blending the two?
I haven't managed to perfect that. So I definitely bring it home, without a doubt. It comes into my relationships. It filters into the way I deal with the kids. It's my friends know. It filters into my purchasing decisions, my health, my eating, every aspect of my life. And the intimates that we work with, I believe it's impossible, because we are so emotionally involved in the business. It's almost like, you can't just kind of close the door and walk away. There are many people that have perfected it, that I have actually worked with, that have been able to do it, but it's more 2 or 3 people out of 10, for example. But what I have done, though, is I have focused very much on mindset. I focused very much on on mind clearing, faith-based processes that people can use, that we can all use to help clear our minds and just make that integration a little bit easier. And this is the very reason why we wanted to do this, because although this is live, this is actually our podcast recording. This is one of our first sessions. So guys, sorry for those that are here in our new session while we kind of find our feet. But we wanted to have these really raw and real conversations because both Anissa and I have come across this so many times in our lives and in our business, in the SMEs that we work with. And although a lot of the SMEs we work with are under program or have some sort of financial support, this kind of conversations don't happen very often. And what we want to tell people is that you're not alone. When we share raw conversations, like I'm saying to Anissa, I'm feeling so frustrated right now with our cash flow and our money positioning. It's something that I would like people to know that I struggle with it being in business for 18 years. Anissa struggles with it. And although we are a lot more successful now, it still affects us to this day. So that kind of, I don't think you can separate, but I think your faith, I think your home life, I think your relationships can help you mitigate the stress if you approach those elements in your business correctly. And I hope that helps.
Are you done talking or are you still talking?
I am done.
Okay, so now my network seems to be toggling again. It shows full. So I don't know what's going on here today. I am in a different location. I'm sitting in my son's room. As I said, they are doing online schooling. So I'm trying to navigate this while still being a business owner. But I can certainly say that it's very difficult, Mumtaz, from my experience. I can't deny it. It's very difficult to split the two, especially when everything depends on making sure you get X amount of turnover or revenue for the month. Your focus is on that. So as much as you don't want to bring it back home as an entrepreneur, you are going to do whatever it takes. It's like Brad, he kicked it off with that at the start today. It's like we're running around wanting to make X amount of revenue, wanting to serve so many clients, wanting to sell so many products. I'm in a service-related business, and so is Brad. But those that are selling specific products, in their environments, that's the focus. Is like, how much can you get? Sales can you get? What's in the pipeline? Who do you need to follow up with? How many proposals are out there? And it does get frustrating because you have to think about how you're going to get the money in the bank for everything at the end of the month, but you can't just think about month end. You've actually got to start thinking about building the pipeline. What's your social media strategy needing to look like? How much time do you need to be on social media? How more intentional can we use social media so that it has a way to monetize itself than just showing up here for the sake of showing up, And as much as we've done this now 2 years, Brad, we are very much there now as well, where we're saying, oh, hold on, we've built up credibility. This might be the new launch of the Mindset Room, but we do have credibility. Brad is a seasoned professional in the work that he does and how he shows up. And I feel very grateful to walk alongside him in some spaces. But it still comes down to thinking about what's that going to yield, right? So it's difficult to separate between business and home and not bringing it home. But I suppose it's how we respond to our family members when those frustrations are there. So I think that for me is the bigger question: is what is the way to ground ourselves when everything is going on in the head about what needs to happen? You spoke
Yeah,
about
for me,
spiritual practices.
yeah, I think it's a lifestyle. I think, we have to understand that business ownership is a lifestyle. And we tend to forget that. We tend to go into business, either by being forced because we can't find work, we go into business, or we go into business to make money and then have a lifestyle with that money. But the actual ownership is where it sits. The ownership is the lifestyle. So, when you enter into this world of business ownership, my advice always to new business owners to understand that this is a 24/7, 365 journey that you're on. But when you do go home and you do go to your spiritual centers and you do go and have a social space, which is very important for balance, you never really drop that facade. You never really, if you're having, for example, money related, let's say you're having cash flow issues, it sits in the back of your mind. But you can learn tools. For example, when you are having cash flow issues, it's very important to remind yourself that it's a temporary situation. Cash flow is very temporary. It's not a permanent thing in your business. It's a temporary problem. You can solve that problem. So if you're sitting, for example, at the end of the month and there's cash flow issues in your business, it is something you can solve, but you cannot solve it right now when you're sitting and having dinner with your family, or when you've gone to your spiritual space to give thanks, or when you are sitting in a restaurant with your friends. So what you've got to learn to do is remind yourself, remind your ego, your mind, your lower mind, I get this, I hear this problem, I respect the problem, but I'm actually putting this problem aside so that I can give myself space to socialize, to be with my kids, be with my family, and come back into the space when I am able to solve it. So it's not about leaving it behind, it's just about how to park it so that you can focus on a little bit of relief. And a friend of mine said to me today, we were having a chat about it, and also a business owner, and she said, you've got to give yourself space. You've got to be kind to yourself as a business owner. That when you are going through financial problems and the banks are phoning you and they have no respect for you as a business owner, they show you zero respect and understand what you're going through, it's good, it's important for you to step away and remind yourself that this is a temporary problem. I can solve it. If I don't have capacity now, I will park it and solve it when I do have the capacity to face it with calmness, with strategy, with mindfulness. And that has really helped me a lot. I've gone and seen a lot of business owners, and we've had consult sessions. And I've said, I can't consult with you right now. You need to take some time off, and we need to circle back, because you're not ready to consult. You've approached this consultation with aggression. You want instant solutions. You're not showing up with the right mindset. Therefore, we cannot solve your problems. And that's also helped me to get better results with the businesses that I've worked with. But Anissa, from your side, what are you thinking?
Well, because I coach so many different entrepreneurs, something which rings true that you've just said around not being able to consult entrepreneurs when they in this chaos, in this suffering and victim consciousness, right? One of the ladies actually said this morning, oh my gosh, she thought this was about business coaching, but it wasn't only about business coaching, because if that spiritual internal side isn't grounded, then nothing's going to go well, and I'm talking about your mind as well as whatever you're feeling emotionally. It does wreak havoc, and it doesn't move us forward. So from my side, I can tell you that I have to do gratitude. I have to go into this energy of, one, giving myself grace that I've done enough. I've done what I could for the day, because one always thinks that I
Yeah,
could have done more. I should have made more
yeah,
calls. I should have tried to have more meetings. It's always
Yeah.
more this, more of that, but sometimes
Mhm.
it's not more of, and it's really just getting grounded and saying, how do I discern between what is going to bring me what I need in terms of that return of my time? And so I need to go into a space of what is working, not on what's not working. That's the only thing that keeps me grounded, and being consistent and showing up, even if I don't want to show up some days. Some days I really feel like, can somebody do this on my behalf for today? Like, why do I have to follow up on those leads or, that
Yeah.
proposal that I sent out? But at the end of the day, if you're a solopreneur and you don't necessarily have a large team and you may be a team of 1+1, that reliance is on you. But I have to also discern between what is this busy work? Because sometimes I feel like, am I just sitting here doing work just to be busy and to almost pat myself on the back and saying, hey, you've done
Mhm.
these things, you've ticked the box, but has it really yielded what I wanted to heal? Because at the end of the week, I'm going to sit and say, nothing purposefully productive happened. There was no return on my time. But if I shift the narrative and I say, what can I celebrate today? What what
Mm.
what did I get to today? And even if it is not yet connected to the money part, I think we need to change our view on money. I mean, this is the conversation today, our relationship with money. Money is energy, money is an enabler. And until we change the relationship with money, it's going to be very difficult because we're focusing so much. And I know there's a saying, what we focus on expands. So if we're focusing on constantly wanting to get to that end goal of whatever that number is, it can also derail you.
Yeah, the thing is, um, the other day we went to go and look uh, at a property, and it was in an equestrian estate, and I didn't realize it was equestrian estate. I should have, because it literally said that underneath the name of the place, but I wasn't paying attention. And the properties are very big, and they've got all the homes have got very low fencing, so it looks very similar to kind of like each home looks like a ranch with its kind of like wooden fencing. So it's a very picturesque, very green, but very focused obviously on the equestrian side. And that
Mm,
talks to people dedicated to a lifestyle. And
mm,
business ownership is a lifestyle, and it encompasses every single part of your world. It creeps in. So respecting money becomes incredibly important for you as a business owner. It should be a lifestyle. So this need to show up with things, and I have this issue often with business owners. In fact, we did a consultation with a business owner that actually owned quite quite an intense manufacturing plant where they manufactured specific items. And how she showed up was the big SUV and the personal assistant was driven around, but he on getting money out of her. So it's just how you show up becomes absolutely important. And understanding it's a lifestyle, you need to be consistent with your money. You need to understand that every time you expected to spend 1 rand, you're actually spending 3 rand, because you have to build that buffer. So I think, look, I don't have all the answers. I can just tell you my experiences from working with business owners and my personal experience with my relationship with money, my lifestyle with money as a business owner. And I could have done better when I was younger. I was terrible. I was chasing completely the wrong things, and it really affected my lifestyle. Now I feel like I'm chasing something to enhance my business ownership lifestyle, so that when I can go away, I have money to do that. I respect my money. When I spend it, I respect it. I know it flows in and out of my business, out of my life, but I do understand that it can be something that will come in a torrential flood, or it's something that just trickles out of your tap. And I think the lifestyle element, if anyone is listening in, for me, this was a big aha moment when I was brought into the space to understand that business ownership is a full turnkey lifestyle. It actually, you start to get a bit cocky with it. You're like, okay, this is my lifestyle. How do I spend in this lifestyle? What do I do with my money? How do I invest it? Because remember, we are not salary snails. We don't get salaries every month on the 25th. Money comes in whenever it's in. So our spending habits, our investment habits, what we view as an asset is not necessarily what somebody else would view as a good asset. But we need something with flexibility. We need to be able to sell when we need to, and to reinvest when we can. So yeah, I think when I started out, I felt very frustrated with money, but now I'm feeling a little bit better. Yeah.
I
And this is the
absolutely,
purpose of these sessions.
I absolutely love that you connected this to a lifestyle. It just almost takes the weight off the money, the relationship with money, because when we weigh in on that lifestyle, it just dawned on me. I have that flexibility, to take my kids to school in the morning, do the school run or the extramural runs. I can schedule my day with my clients. I can choose to give up a Saturday, as I said earlier on, or a public holiday, depending on how busy I am. So I agree with you that it is a lifestyle. And that once we connect it in that way, it's like, who do I want to show up as? What's important to me? Am I growing this business to scale it? And I mean, that's another conversation we'll have down the line.
Yeah.
Or am I having this business because it's connected to my purpose, to my why, the impact that I want to make? Am I wanting to leave a legacy for my family? It was this family needing to take over this business. I think those are all things that ties back to that lifestyle, Brad. And I'm sitting here processing it and thinking about it, and how do I revisit that for myself going forward? So thank you for that. Just want to say hi to Paul from Kampala, Uganda. Welcome, Paul Kent, all the way from Uganda. And then I think his name is Muhammad. He does join us often. He's from Dubai. King Property Dealer International Real Estate, it says. Welcome.
So I think, again, look, the purpose of these sessions, these podcasts, is really for us for anyone listening in on this, to understand that you're not alone when sometimes you get that cold shiver down your spine, when you've got to pay out 10 Rand and you have 5 Rand in the bank. You're not alone when you stand in a shopping center and you only have enough money for bread, milk, and your kids are expecting a 3-course meal. But what you've got to do and understand that in those moments, you're experiencing a lifestyle that you've chosen, and you're experiencing the good, the bad, the ugly with the business. You have the opportunity to be in the mall with your kids during the day, but unfortunately at that point, you don't really have the finances to do what you truly want to do. So you will see it as a way of kind of my freedom, like I expressed my frustration. Your freedom is being curtailed. You don't have a lot of freedom. My money's tied up. this is so frustrating when you see your counterparts who earn salaries being able to plan ahead, book those holidays 8 months away and pay the deposit. For us business owners, that becomes almost impossible because we don't know whether we're going to need that deposit money in 8 months' time. So it is a lifestyle, but it is a good side to this lifestyle. And it is the one beautiful thing for me, and the reason why I will never not be a business owner, is the incredible amount of freedom you experience from corporate politics, from having to show up in a certain way. Now, as a business owner, you have the power to dictate how to show up. These sessions are casual. I'm sitting on a couch. Our niece is in her kids' room, and we're having if we lived close to each other, we would be having this conversation sitting on the floor somewhere, just chatting about how we're feeling. And this is why this is really important for me, because yes, Anissa and I can do killer strategies. We've worked with big organizations. We understand the philosophy around business ownership, but a very few of our experiences in those corporate structures has focused on the mindset. So the big thing is finances will have a way of eating at your ego, but we don't operate our business from our ego. We operate it from our soul. And in essence, we don't really need the ego. What you show up and what you drive and how you dress is irrelevant in the lifestyle that you live, because you're chasing a bigger purpose, a higher calling, if that may be. And the one advice I can give anyone listening to this, get close to your spiritual beliefs, because I almost believe in my soul that owning a business is a godly experience.
I'm going to second that, Brad. I'm going to second that because, I've shared on before on our other segments, is that December, Jan, and Feb is my most quietest period of my business because it's professional services. And if I did not have my spiritual faith, my spiritual beliefs and my faith that provisions and abundance comes from above, it's already taken care of. I just need to show up, be consistent, be very clear on why I'm serving in the capacity that I am and why I choose this lifestyle. I can't just thank you enough. You've just given me such an aha moment today with this lifestyle thing, because and again, people, this isn't rehearsed. So what I'm sharing here is really truly what I'm feeling in this moment, because that was a different perspective entirely, than looking at a business as in any other aspects that we've said earlier on, whether it's building a legacy or scaling it in the future, etc. But if it's a lifestyle, it becomes a way of life. It's embedded into the spiritual aspects as well, right? And we sit there and we reflect and we say, what exactly am I truly and honestly grateful for in this moment, even when the wallet is not as abundant as it should be, right? I like that you say you're in the shop or you need to pay out the 10 rand, but you've only got the 5 rand, because that's real. That's happening. And
It
what
does
I
happen.
discovered is that one has to actually also seek for those answers from your spiritual sources, whichever source that might be for you. And it's not that you are alone. Brad said it here more than once, and that it's okay to ask for help. That was the hardest part for me in this last season, is to say, well, it's okay. You don't have to have it all together. You don't have to be the high achiever. You don't have to have it all perfect in the way that you laid it out in your beautifully laid out goals or vision for your business. It doesn't work like that for business. There's going to be those unforeseen eventualities. You called it the good, the bad, the ugly earlier on. It's how do you show up in the times when it's not going well? Who are you
mm,
showing up as in those moments?
mm. Yeah, you're right. Who are you? Yeah, because the good times it's easy, when there's money in the bank. It's your ego. It's you can feed that ego. You can go and drop a couple of grand buying something nice, and it's kind of like the temporary fix. But what I tend to do, and why I believe I've gotten better with money and been able to stay in business, because we have multiple businesses that we're running, is to just kind of, I call it the Jessica Fletcher lifestyle. So
Maybe she
it's a
wrote.
character. Yeah, Murder She Wrote. So I grew up watching a lot of video. I was that kid that watched a lot of TV and videos. And I loved that lifestyle so much because she was this bestseller author, and yet she lived in her original home, and she used a little bicycle to get around her town. Completely irrelevant to us here. But the theory of really looking at your lifestyle and the things you bring into that lifestyle, and understanding that any financial decision you make, whether it's for ego, for the soul, for the family, whatever reason, it's going to impact that lifestyle. It's going to either give you the boost to improve the lifestyle, to grow that SMME lifestyle, or it's going to contribute to weighing it down. And I mean, case in point, I remember the most expensive car I bought was about 1.4, and that was a couple of years ago. And at the end of the day, it really just cost me so much more because I skewed my lifestyle to try and prove a point, and it just didn't work. And I think it's so unnecessary, arriving with all this muster and all this stuff, when all we want to do is just be able to ensure that we can stay in business ownership for a long time. And I always say, yeah, to young business owners, because I didn't listen to my grandparents, my mom and them, when they gave me this advice. But I hope the youngsters, we did a lecture at WITS the other day, and I was saying to them, don't get caught up in proving that you're a good business owner. I already know you're a good business owner. You already know that. You don't have to prove to anyone in the way you drive and what you have and what you wear that you're a good business owner. Nobody needs to, that does not need to be proven. But just being in business tells me you're a good business owner. And that's enough. Don't let that never be not enough for you. So the sense of humility is something I get reminded about all the time. I do struggle with it as well. But it's very important for the lifestyle.
I want to bring in one point, and it was also from today, a coaching session today, but I think it was also one of our proposed talking points around the difference between activity and alignment, right? I think if we're not aligned to what we are doing, and it is not, again, aligned to the lifestyle that we want to lead with in our personal and professional lives, that's when we go into the hustle, I feel, right? Because if you're not aligned, you either have no boundaries, you say yes to everything,
Mm-hmm.
and you say yes because of scarcity and lack and poverty mindset. And I just want to bring it back to the money conversation as we are nearing the end of our segment. I think we
Yeah.
said we're going to do 45 minutes. So
Yeah.
I do feel that your alignment, again, not just the alignment with money, but that whole mind, body, soul, spirit, heart space, all of that needs to be aligned with who you are and what you offer in the world. And if those are aligned, no matter what happens, if those storms come in, if you have the conviction within that alignment, nothing is going to stand in your way. You will be okay with the seasons that are really difficult because you know it is impermanent. And that's one thing I'm always passionate to say is that if you are in alignment, no, you'll also know that nothing will remain permanent. even the good times, the blissful times. And that ego that you're referring to is a pivotal departure point. If we didn't take away anything, then it's that today. Because ego, once it influences your mind and how you run your business, it's a recipe for disaster. And until we have the awareness of what is meaningful in terms of money or possessions or resources, do we want the shiny objects, and why do we want the shiny objects? And what is the cost of that for us, right? So
Yeah.
I think for me, two things that I take out of today was definitely your lifestyle point and the ego point. And from my side, it's just to let our audience know, please, you're not alone in this. You don't need to show up in a
That's it.
facade of having it all together all of the time. And you have more resources than just money. And resources can be going to the ocean and revitalizing yourself and getting your mind right and grounding yourself. It doesn't just have to be spiritual in the sense of sitting on a prayer mat or going to church or mosque. It could be other things. So we always have to ask ourselves, what other resources do we actually have that we can tap into? We have our networks. I can have Brad if I need to have a sounding board and say, I'm not
Yeah.
feeling aligned right now. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling anxious. And then lastly, it's okay to feel all of those overwhelmed and anxious and angry and frustrated, because if we don't, if we're going to suppress it, what we're going to resist will persist. So I encourage you also to allow those emotions, but do not run your business from an emotional standpoint. That's really all I want to say today, Brad.
Yeah, and I think that takes us to the end of the session. And the reason why we do it 45 minutes is because Anissa and I, mainly me, we have concentration issues. So 45 minutes makes sense for us to share and open up. We are going to grow these sessions. We do them live. They get recorded and then they'll get uploaded to our channels. And really, as we grow, we will be bringing guests in, professionals, to give us more of a, let's say, a professional kind of sounding board, because Anissa and I are going to show up hyper emotional in these sessions, so that we can be vulnerable, but we would bring people in that can help pull that down into some strong advice. Yeah, so this is the first session in strategy, but I think it went really well. And it's also helped me to shift my thinking, Anissa. So thank you for the points shared, and we'll catch up soon.
We will. For those that have joined us on LinkedIn, on YouTube, as well as Instagram, thank you so much. Please, if there are any questions you have for us in the future, we do plan to add a lovely QR code that we can get you to scan so that you can get in touch with either Brad or myself. And if there's any particular topic, that is of importance to you that you'd like to talk to us one-on-one, most certainly we will be opening that. But for today, we just really wanted to have an honest, raw, and real conversation. So until next month, the last Wednesday of every month, we will see you again. And please do join us. I'm going to end the live, Brad. Anything you want to say in closing? Is that it?
I'm cool, man. I think we did well.
Okay, so yeah, let me end. And